In November last year, Indonesian authorities seized 4 plots of land like this one in West Java to recover bad loans owed to the government since the 1997 Asian financial crisis. The land belongs to a man who bears a powerful name, Tommy Suharto, playboy businessman extraordinaire, famed for his fast cars, lavish lifestyle, and wealthy companions. Tommy was the youngest and most favored son of a president who ruled Indonesia for more than 3 decades and amassed the largest ill-gotten wealth in all of Asia, most of which would likely never be recovered, constituting a $35 billion theft that continues to haunt Indonesians till this day. This is the Big Steal. Suharto was born a humble peasant boy to a minor village official in the heart of Java. He found his way to power and wealth by joining the ranks of the military under the Dutch, the Japanese, and eventually the newly formed Indonesian army. On September 30, 1965, a failed coup within the army gave the young general the perfect opportunity to step into power. He seized control of the military, blamed the coup on leftists, and launched an anti-communist purge that killed close to 500,000 party members and sympathizers, and eventually deposed the nation's founding president, Sukarno. By 1968, at 47 years old, Suharto emerged as Indonesia's #1 man. At first, Suharto's rule seemed like good news for the nation. The economy began to grow impressively after years of stagnation. Poverty fell from 45% to 11%, infant mortality declined. Per capita GDP increased 4-fold, and access to education and healthcare improved dramatically. This was the beginning of Indonesia's new middle class, and Suharto was fondly called the father of development. But throughout his rule, Suharto's ruthlessness was on full display. On December 7, 1975, Indonesia invaded the newly independent nation of East Timor to prevent the establishment of a communist state. The invasion and almost 24-year occupation left as many as 200,000 dead. Suharto also permeated a culture of cronyism and corruption. His close relations and business friends became notorious for controlling state enterprises, receiving kickbacks for government contracts, and siphoning money from charities. Having come from a broken family, it is often claimed that Suharto's great weakness was his inability to say no to his 6 children. They were often granted state monopolies over commodity sales, tax breaks, and no questions asked funding. And their influence flowed through nearly every capillary of Indonesian life, clocking in a net worth of $35 billion, according to Transparency International, almost half the nation's GDP.
As the former head of the state electricity company, it was Mr. Jiteng who signed deals with Western power suppliers worth billions of pounds. Deals he now says were overpriced and forced upon him.
They used their fabulous wealth on luxury homes around the world, private jets, and shopping sprees. And in Tommy's case, racetracks and a majority stake in Italian supercar maker Lamborghini. Suharto's biographer described this corruption as a well-managed franchise, where everyone knew how much they had to pay and to whom. Meanwhile, dissent was ruthlessly quashed by the military and vigilantes. But to the dictator himself, this was not corruption. Patronage, or the personal dispensing of government largesse, fell well within the prerogatives of the Japanese ruler. Many Indonesians, up to a point, agreed that it was accepted that the president, his family, and his ministers would grow rich in the course of duty. It was simply the spoils of office. Crucially, there was a sense that as long as growth and development continues, everyone was happy. However, by the 90s, the economic benefits of the new order had reached its natural limit. High interest rates and a strong rupiah had spurred foreign borrowing. The economy was in a bubble. According to IMF, the Suharto's unbridled accumulation of wealth had distorted the economy for decades, by killing competition, driving away foreign investment, and keeping commodity prices artificially high. In 1997, when an economic crisis rocked the whole of Asia, the rupiah lost 30% of its value. A drought made rice supplies scarce, unemployment rose, and the impoverished masses took to the streets. At the same time, Suharto was losing his most powerful friends. As a bulwark against communism in Asia, the United States was rewarding Suharto with a foreign aid package of over $4 billion a year. When the Cold War ended, Uncle Sam no longer needed Suharto's support. In desperation, the embattled president signed a devastating agreement with the IMF in exchange for a $43 billion bailout, which not only failed to solve their economic problems, but also triggered a bank run that drove the nation to near bankruptcy. In 1998, popular revolt toppled 32 years of Suharto rule.
President Suharto seemed today to laugh off demands for him to step down. He's reshuffled his cabinet, but that's almost certainly too little, too late.
If his personal wealth of $35 billion is true, Suharto outranks all other cases of presidential graft in history. Suharto himself was never prosecuted. Doctors had declared that he was too unhealthy to stand trial. His family, protected by their vast wealth and crony connections, largely got away unscathed, with the exception of Tommy Suharto, who was sentenced to 15 years in prison for conspiracy to murder a Supreme Court justice who convicted him of corruption. He was released in less than 4 years. Suharto died in 2008, but his three main pillars of power, his business network, the military, and the former ruling party, Golkar, remain intact. The military's involvement in business also continues, running a sprawling network of legal and illegal enterprises, prompting critics to question whether they're businessmen with weapons or soldiers with checkbooks. Indonesians have enthusiastically embraced democracy and newfound freedoms since the fall of Suharto, but it remains to be seen whether his authoritarianism and the culture of corruption he pervaded will really be gone for good.